FaceIQ just put out a statement trying to get ahead of the backlash regarding his dietary pivot. He says that biochemistry doesn't matter if your sleep is wrecked, your hands are cold, and your libido tanks. He claims these symptoms prove that a zero-carb approach is biologically flawed. But here's the massive irony. He thinks that those are symptoms of a carb deficiency. In reality, what he just described is a mineral imbalance and a lack of fat. He reached for the quickest fix, which is sugar, and is now telling his audience to do the same thing. So basically, he just needed to fix his execution instead of running for fruit and honey. So that's what I said in the response to his post. Okay, and we're going to look at a video now that he talks about different people's diets. He tells his audience that it's actually safer to eat excessive sugar rather than to eat some extra eggs, because the sugar will just be stored as stable saturated body fat.
When you have a ton of fats, there, especially eggs, like this many eggs per day, there's still, 20% polyunsaturated fats. So when you have so much fats, it's also inefficient because you don't need that much for the fat soluble vitamins. And then you're actually getting a solid amount of polyunsaturated fats. Today's day of eating probably that amount of eggs, and salmon. Yeah, like he probably had 20 to 30 grams of polyunsaturated fats today. When you eat excessive sugar, that just gets turned into saturated fat or monounsaturated fat. It can't even go to polyunsaturated fat. So I would say it would be better to take the risk of eating too much sugar and then that going to body fat, because that's going to be mostly just the very stable saturated fats.
That's a complete misunderstanding, because that's the Novo Lipogenesis process where the liver turns sugar into fat. When you flood your liver with high amounts of fructose from juice and honey, the liver doesn't just neatly pack it away into your love handles. It creates visceral fat inside and around your organs. So when you combine the sugar and the fat, like what he's suggesting, then that's going to cause the visceral fat. It drives elevated triglycerides, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, etc. It upregulates the Randle cycle.
Sun is good, yeah. Cheese and honey, that's good, yeah.
So FaceIQ is completely ignoring the Randle cycle here, and he actually used to talk about the Randle cycle a lot, and he's just completely ignoring it there. No explanation why you should have honey and cheese together, because cheese is high fat. It's got plenty of fat in it, and then the honey's got plenty of sugar, carbs. Okay, he's saying, oh, it's okay to combine the two and have a meal like that. But that's completely ignoring the Randle cycle, because the Randle cycle is a cross inhibition of these two substrates, carbs and fat. So basically, you want to choose between one or the other. You want to choose either carbs or fat. And which should you choose? You should choose the fat, because that's got the fat soluble vitamins. It creates a biological traffic jam by having the two of them, and that creates oxidative stress. You are replicating the exact same disastrous pathway you'd see in the standard American diet by mixing these carbs and fat together. So you have to choose between carbs and fat as your fuel source. But what about the claim that by eating carbs that'll lead you into endless gluconeogenesis, so your body will keep creating these new glucose molecules from non-glucose precursors?
I don't want to overshoot it, but that really could be 300 grams of protein. A lot of that protein is just going to be converted into glucose, but you're going to have, the ammonia byproduct if you're going super high protein, and you will have 15% more gluconeogenesis with no carbs.
So Frost is saying that the protein, so you make sugar out of protein, but it's not just protein, it's also lactate and glycerol as well. So lactate through the Cori cycle, and then also glycerol, which is a product of lipolysis.
And so you will see typically in, carnivore blood work, I've been reviewing so much of it, you do see cortisol, not just upward, but very, very high. And cortisol comes with a lot of downstream effects, hormones are signals. It's a signal I don't think you want super high chronically.
Like I talked about before, cortisol is in your body for a reason. When you wake up in the morning, your cortisol might rise, but that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. So the cortisol awakening response that you get in the morning just to help you get out of bed in the morning, yes, your cortisol goes up, but it's not chronically high. You might see a bit of an increase in cortisol on a low carb diet, but again, it's not a distressing event. It's not chronic stress. Your cortisol rises temporarily. After 3 weeks, it goes back down to baseline. So if he's looking at people and saying, oh, they're getting these problems and their cortisol is spiking, and oh, look, all this stress from the cortisol. Cortisol is there for a reason, first off. And secondly, there's 3 enzymes in the production of gluconeogenesis, like Pepsi-K, glucose-6-phosphatase, fructose-1,6-biphosphatase. They're the main 3 regulatory enzymes of gluconeogenesis. So once it's served that function of those 3 enzymes, then it goes back down to baseline. So it might be higher for the first 3 weeks, but then it goes back down to baseline. It is a beautifully regulated system, not a chronic state of stress. You know what does cause stress though? The mineral imbalance that FaceIQ is promoting. He praises his approach for being calcium maxed through heavy dairy consumption.
This is very good. He definitely has a good calcium to phosphorus ratio with all the dairy. Most definitely. You know, also fructose can, the way it displaces phosphorus can reduce your need for calcium as well. So yeah, he's definitely calcium maxed.
But he completely ignores the calcium to magnesium ratio. Calcium and magnesium work on a biological seesaw. Calcium triggers muscle and nerve contraction, whilst magnesium triggers relaxation. The calcium is going to be too high. It's going to be a poor calcium to magnesium ratio by eating dairy too much. When you calcium max without balancing magnesium, you risk intracellular calcium buildup and muscle cramps, etc. He's actually going to cause these problems by actually recommending high dairy consumption. If you eat ruminant fatty meat, that's going to have a better balance of calcium to magnesium.
But very nutrient dense just from a hormonal and thyroid perspective and from a fatty acid composition perspective.
Trying to use hundreds of grams of carbs a day to fix a thyroid issue is like using a blowtorch to warm up your hands, okay? That's what it's like doing. It's a quick fix, but it causes more harm than good. Because there's less glycolysis on a carnivore diet, okay, because you're not eating much glucose, then you're not going to have as much T3 naturally. So that's not a bad thing. So before adding all these sugars back in, what you should do is say, is it a carnivore diet that's causing the problem? Or is it because you're not fixing the ratios of the fat and the protein?
I definitely think a lot of its protein could be substituted for carbs, like fruit juices, fruits, honey.
So with the whole fruits thing, the apple you bought in the supermarket or the pear you bought was picked most likely 9 to 14 months ago. And that's not a conspiracy theory, by the way. There's proof of this. It was acknowledged by the US, their own agricultural body. And we're told that these fruits are high in vitamin C. But when they're stored that long, then this vitamin C degrades a bit because they picked them before the vine ripened. Like I talked about in another video, they picked them before the vine ripened. So they picked them early and all the anti-nutrients are intact as well. That's another thing. So yes, there's less anti-nutrients in fruit compared to vegetables, for example, but there's still anti-nutrients in it. So these weren't available to us all year round. If you have an apple tree in your back garden or a pear tree in your back garden, then that's going to be a lot better. And then the honey, that's not going to have much nutrition either. FaceIQ tries to dismiss the glycation effect of fructose.
So like in terms of just, let's say, eating honey or eating fruit juice or eating fruits, I mean, the fructose glycation thing is I would say it's pretty much a write-off. I mean, it's a lot less glycating than even the 4 grams of glucose you always have. It's just nothing.
He's ignoring the biochemical damage it leaves behind. Fructose is a highly reactive sugar. Glycates up to 10 times faster than glucose, fructose does. So the fructose in sugar in honey and fruit is very glycating. If you want to see the real world damage of mixing meat with fruit and honey, then don't just look at a HbA1c test. Look at a fructosamine assay test, and that'll tell you the real damage. Because in the HbA1c test, it's very insensitive to fructose and galactose. So fructosamine assay test measures a glycated proteins over a 2 or 3 week window. So even if like it looks grand on paper, when you look at the fructosamine assay, that's going to give you more of a clear picture of the damage that's being done. There's a big difference between 20 grams of carbs a day and slamming hundreds of grams of carbs a day. Of course, first, look into it. Give your body time to adapt, especially if you're after coming from a different diet. If you want the actual biology behind achieving optimal health, then hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.